What's going on, Packer fans? Welcome back to the Pack a Day podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at AndyHermanNFL. Before we jump in today, I just wanted to say a quick thank you, whether this is your first time listening or your 500th time listening or anything in between. I really appreciate you. I see the comments. I see the kind words. I see the likes. It doesn't go unnoticed. So thank you for supporting me. Thank you for supporting the Pack a Day podcast. I can't thank you enough and just really appreciate you being here today. That being said, let's jump into our main topic for today. And what I wanted to do is take a look back at my grades, specifically from 2021, but with a 2022 twist on it. And I was actually talking to Peter Bukowski the other day, and we actually ended up doing a video together. I believe he's going to post it next week. But he was talking to me about some of the grades that I did and how that sort of translated and things like that. And it sort of sparked a couple things, like A, that I haven't gone back and sort of looked at my grades from this past season. And B, more importantly, of those top graded players, of those, not so great graded players, who's still on the team, who left, who's back, and how does that sort of translate from what we saw on the field a season ago? So for those unfamiliar, one of the things that I do, and one of the ways that I really got started doing what I'm doing now, is by a series called Grading the Pack. And for the last, I think, 5 or 6 seasons now, I've graded every Packer on every play throughout the course of those seasons using the same grading system. Obviously, it's different for offense and defense in different positions and things like that. But I've graded every Packer on every play for the last handful plus of seasons. So what the grades are and like how they're calculated and things like that, we don't need to get super into the weeds for this today. What I more wanted to look at is, who's still here, who's back, who's gone, and how did they sort of grade from a season ago? And just based on those grades, can we sort of project Green Bay to be a better team, a worse team, sort of it somewhere in the middle? So that's what I wanted to take a look at today. So I first wanted to look at who are my 5 highest rated offensive players from a season ago. Number 1, Aaron Rodgers. Number 2, Davante Adams. Number 3, Aaron Jones. Number 4, A.J. Dillon. And number 5, Randall Cobb. So first of all, clearly the big one here is Davante Adams, who had a plus 18.85 grade. Again, don't get caught too much in the minutia, but a 0 grade would be net neutral, right? So like on a given play, if you're grading a given play, a 0 would mean it didn't help the team, it didn't hurt the team, it was just basically indifferent, right? So a 0 is a net neutral. Davante Adams, the second highest graded player overall on the team with a plus 18.85 grade. That is clearly a massive loss, but Rodgers, Jones, Dillon, Cobb, all returning from a season ago. How about the 5 highest graded defensive players instead of offensive? Kenny Clark, all right, Rashawn Gary, Rasul Douglas, Adrian Amos, Devondre Campbell. All right, so we're 5 for 5 there. So overall, Green Bay is returning 9 of its 10 highest graded players from a season ago in Rodgers, Jones, Dillon, Cobb, Clark, Gary, Douglas, Amos, and Campbell. The only one that is missing, of course, is Davante Adams. All right, how about our lowest graded players? Our lowest graded, or my lowest graded players on offense, Lucas Patrick, negative 5.15, followed by Royce Newman, Yosh Nijman, Billy Turner, and Juwan Winfrey. So of those, we know Lucas Patrick, the lowest graded offensive player from a season ago, is gone. He's in Chicago. Royce Newman is back, but should be better in his second year, you would think. Yosh Nijman, that was his first real playing time. You would think he would improve as well. Billy Turner is gone in Denver. And then Juwan Winfrey, even in minimal playing time a season ago, my 5th lowest rated offensive player. Odds are, like right now, he's probably the number 8 wide receiver on the roster. Odds are he's on the practice squad at best, probably is not earning a active roster spot. So even if he is on the team, even if he's on the practice squad, the odds that he's getting a ton of playing time is incredibly slim. Again, you're really the only 2 that are back are Newman and Nijman, and neither of them are guaranteed the same snaps that they received a season ago. So Patrick Turner gone, Winfrey unlikely to play, Nijman and Newman both should improve, but are not guaranteed their spots from a season ago either. All right, how about lowest graded defensive players? Jonathan Garvin was my lowest, followed by Darnell Savage, Henry Black, Kingsley Keke, and Chandon Sullivan. So Black, Keke, Sullivan all gone from the team. Jonathan Garvin, my bet is that he will be gone from the team, at least on the active roster. Maybe he makes it back to the practice squad, but my guess is that he doesn't make it back for another season. If he does, once again, not quite sure he'll get the same level of snaps he did a season ago. He certainly could. Green Bay needs the edge rusher snaps, but I would put Randy Ramsey, maybe even Kingsley Enagbare, Tipa Nalii, maybe even Ladarius Hamilton. I would put quite a few players ahead of Garvin. Again, he was my lowest graded defensive player from a season ago. If Garvin is gone, the only player back on defense from my lowest graded players was Darnell Savage. And go back to 2020, Darnell Savage was one of my 5 highest graded defenders in 2020. So if he can get back to playing that way, that would be a major swing for the defense. But overall, even right now, 2 of the 5 returning in Garvin and Savage, on offense, Newman and Nijman returning as well. But overall, they've really sort of purged their roster from these players that at least I had graded very low from a season ago. So that would seem to be a good thing. How about the one other way to look at this that I think is important is, yes, you can grade it as like highest and lowest graded players, but it's also really important to look at it like how did they do per snap? Because again, if a player graded poorly but played a ton of snaps, it's not quite the same as if a player graded poorly but didn't play hardly any snaps. They're the worst player because on a per snap basis, they were way worse. So I wanted to look at the highest graded offensive players per snap on a 200 snap minimum. So Rodgers, Adams, Jones, Cobb, Dillon, same cast of characters, slightly different order, but 4 of the 5 still returning. Highest graded defenders, Kenny Clark. Jair Alexander was number 2, even in his minimum snaps would have been number 2 on a per play basis. Rashawn Gary, Rasul Douglas, and Devondre Campbell. So all 5 returning there. Once again, Green Bay returns 9 of the 10. The only one missing from the highest graded players, even on a per play basis, would have been Devontae Adams. How about the lowest graded offensive players per snap? Once again, we've got Lucas Patrick on the list. Once again, we've got Billy Turner on the list. And then we have 3 returning players. Once again, Yash and Royce, but now Josiah DeGuara shows up on this list as well. So hopefully he can take a jump this season. The lowest graded players on a per snap basis, Jonathan Garvin once again, then Henry Black gone, Kingsley Keke gone, Kevin King gone, Tyler Lancaster gone. And if Garvin is in fact gone, that would be my 5 lowest graded Packer defenders on a per snap basis, minimum 200 snaps, would all be gone from a season ago. And again, Patrick, the lowest graded offensive player, and Billy Turner, the 5th graded lowest offensive player on a per snap basis, would both be gone also. So potentially 7 of the 10 here, only Nijman, Newman, and DeGuara would be the ones returning from my players who are lowest graded on a per snap basis. So looking at this position by position, now I'm just looking at the players who exited here, right? So I don't have grades from a season ago from the rookie class. I don't have grades from a season ago from Jerron Reed. I don't have it for, any of the free agents that signed, Sammy Watkins, etc. So I can't go and, add those stats into this. So this is just the players that have been sort of purged from the roster at this point and how the overall grade affects itself. So at quarterback, gone is Kurt Benkert. No change to the overall grade. All the running backs returned, so that grade remains the same. Wide receiver at this point, Devontae Adams, MVS, and EQ, all gone. They combined for a plus 22.25 grade. So that is a major loss. Green Bay is down negative 22.25 from losing Adams, MVS, and EQ. As we've all known, a major drop-off and change potentially at wide receiver. Tight end, all the tight ends are back as of right now. Offensive line, they lose Billy Turner, Dennis Kelly, and Ben Braden. Those three players combined for a negative 0.95 grade. So Green Bay is a plus 0.95 with the loss of those 3 players. So if you look at the net score on offense, by losing Kirk Benkert, Billy Turner, Dennis Kelly, Ben Braden, Devontae Adams, MVS, and EQ, Green Bay's net score, just with those, again, not the additions, but just the subtractions, is a net negative 21.3, with, again, Devontae Adams being a huge part of that. All right, let's look at the defensive side of the ball, though. Defensive line, Abdullah Anderson, you remember him, the good old Abdullah Anderson, and then Kingsley Keke, those 2 combined for a negative 3.75 grade. So that's a plus 3.75 there. Whitney Merciless, Zadarius Smith, and Chauncey Rivers combined for a negative 1.45 grade. You might be like, Zadarius, Whitney, Merciless, and Rivers combined for a negative? Well, Merciless only played for a couple games. He had a slight positive. Zadarius only played in 2 games. He was graded as a slight negative in both of those in his injury-plagued season. And then Chauncey Rivers was the big one in a few games who graded in the negative. So, but Green Bay gains a plus 1.45 there. Linebacker, Oren Burks and the Jalen Smith experiment combined for a negative 1.45 grade. So that's plus 1.45 there. At corner, Kevin King, Chandon Sullivan, and Isaac Yadam combined for a negative 6.15 grade. So add 6.15 to the score. And then Henry Black was a negative 3.75 grade. So add 3.75 more. So your net defense grade, just again with the players that exited stage left from this past season, is a plus 16.55. So offense negative 21.3, mostly due to Devontae Adams. Defense plus 16.55. The net difference negative 4.75. So Green Bay in that situation, not including any of the additions, is a negative 4.75. However, let's look at a couple different things here. How about the return potentially of David Bakhtiari, Jair Alexander, and Robert Tonyan? Those could be 3 major additions to this team in 2022. In 2020, Bakhtiari was a plus 14.9 grade, Jair was a plus 13.55 grade, and Tonyan was a plus 5.45 grade. Their combined grade plus 33.9. Last year, in limited snaps due to injury, they combined for only plus 4.3. The difference, 29.6 points. You add in the 2020 versions of Bakhtiari, Jair, and Tonyan, and you have a major addition to this roster from a season ago in grading productivity. In addition, you have the additions of Jarran Reed and Sammy Watkins, which are not accounted for here. If you look at the grades, PFF and I don't always agree on grades, as you would imagine. Any 2 graders are not exactly always going to see the same things exactly eye to eye. But their 60 grade is my 0.0 grade, right? So if they have a 60 overall, that's their average. My average is a 0.0. So Jarran Reed was a 54.5 by PFF standards a season ago. Sammy Watkins was a 66.3. If you sort of average those out, again, you're getting right at about 60, which is a net 0 grade. So assuming PFF and I actually agreed on those grades, and assuming they played the same as they were a season ago, you're probably looking at a net neutral grade there. You also have the draft class, which, if we're being honest, the players that play from the rookie class, maybe you get a repeat like Eric Stokes' performance, which was a net positive grade. But overall, the rookie class as a whole, with the snaps that they play, is probably going to grade slightly in the negative. That's just usually how it works. But that's not also including jumps from players like Josh Myers, Royce Newman, Amari Rodgers, Tyler Davis, TJ Slayton, Eric Stokes, Yosh Nijman, etc., etc. So you could see some of these players take a significant step in the right direction as well. So overall, I'm rather bullish on the state of the Packers, just based on my grades from a season ago and what they lost, and not exactly what they gained, because again, it's tough to say, but what they lost or what they replaced, I'm pretty confident in. Again, the big one here is Devontae Adams with a grade of 18.85, second highest graded player on the team. That is a major loss, but made up for that is the fact that probably 7 of the 10 of my lowest graded players from a season ago will be gone, not playing. And then the other thing is that you're getting back Tonyan, Bakhtiari, Jair Alexander, all things going according to plan, hopefully fingers and toes and everything else crossed. If they get those guys back, and odds are that they probably won't play quite up to 2020 coming back from injury, but man, if they're even 80% of that, that is a major addition. Add in a Jarran Reed, a Sammy Watkins, hopefully a couple good draft picks that can grade in the positive, some players improving, and then not to mention, they can't get worse, like knock on everything, right? But they can't get worse on special teams, right? Please tell me they cannot get worse on special teams. That improves as well. I think the roundabout way of saying this is, regardless of whether you know about my grades, what they're basically confirming is kind of what we thought all along here, right? Devontae Adams is the big loss. You feel like they got better on defense. You feel like they let some of their lower tiered players go in the offseason. They went to different teams. You felt like they had a good draft class. You're confident that Jerron Reed and Sammy Watkins can hopefully play some part on this team. You're confident that special teams can be better, but that Davante Adams and wide receiver question mark remains the big one as to how they're going to replace it. And then the other one is just how good can Bakhtiari and Alexander and Tonyan be? Because, like, think of it this way, right? And of course, when do you get Elton Jenkins back and who gets hurt on your team this year? But think of it this way, right? Like, if I had the option of trading Davante Adams for a healthy Tonyan, Jair, and Bakhtiari, and I know Jair technically played in the playoff game, limited snaps or whatever, but not himself and wasn't able to play the whole game. If I can trade Davante Adams for those three players in full health, not to mention all the other pieces that they were able to add, like, I'm taking that deal a million times out of a million. Like, the team's just going to be better overall, right? So overall, again, long story short, very happy with looking back at this. Always interesting to see which players they move on from and if it matched some of my lowest graded players. Darnell Savage, I think, even though he was one of my lowest graded players, I think can hopefully get back to his 2020 form and hopefully be one of the higher rated players on this defense. He has all the capability of doing that. This could be a team that has very few players. I mean, somebody's always going to grade in the negative just because other team's going to score points and there's going to be mistakes made, but like, that has very few players graded in the negative overall if things go according to plan. That does it for me today. Thank you so much again for joining me. I'll be right back here tomorrow with an all-new episode. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.